You think you chose that, you didn't. And the worst part? You'll finish watching this video and still think you did. That it was your idea. That it was your preference. That it was you. Spoiler, it wasn't. Let's start with a scene you'll recognize because it happened to you. Happens to you. And will continue to happen to you as long as you live in this blessed country called the United States of America. Land of opportunity, dreams, ruined finance, and the most sophisticated advertising money can buy. You're watching American football on a Sunday. It's almost noon. The game hasn't even properly started. And during halftime, a hamburger commercial comes on. Not just any hamburger. A hamburger with the cheese oozing in slow motion. With a soundtrack that sounds like the Super Bowl. With a deep voice narration that makes you feel like it's not food. It's a spiritual experience. You look at the screen. You drool. You think, man, I'd love a hamburger right now. And then you go get one. And when someone asks you why you want a hamburger, you answer, because I want hamburger. As if that craving had been born inside you. As if it were yours. As if you had woken up that morning with a deep vocation for processed meat. But the truth is different. The truth is, you didn't want to. You were pushed, gently, repeatedly, until your brain got confused. Exhibition with preference. And this confusion isn't a weakness on your part. It's biology. It's the same biology that allowed your ancestors to survive in the savannas. The problem is that the savanna has become a shopping mall, and the predators have become marketing departments with budgets worthy of a sovereign nation. This has a name. It's called the mere exposure effect. It was discovered by a psychologist named Robert Zionk in the 1960s. Simply put, the more you see something, the more you like it. Not because it's better, not because it makes sense, but because your lazy brain, which evolved to conserve energy, interprets it. Familiarity, how security, and security becomes a preference. And preference becomes a choice, or at least the illusion of choice. A very well-produced, very well-funded illusion, and very well-placed, at exactly the moment when you are most vulnerable. And the big American corporations have known this since before you were born, before your mother was born, before your mother's mother was born. They know, and they use it, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, plus one in a leap year, because you don't even get a day off on that day. Think about Coca-Cola. Have you ever stopped to think about why Coca-Cola spends more than $4 billion a year on advertising? 4 billion, with a B for billion. Everyone already knows Coca-Cola. Everyone already knows the taste. Everyone already knows where to buy it. So why advertise? Because the goal isn't to inform you. The goal is to remind you, to appear, to be there, to build automatic familiarity so that when you're in the supermarket looking at the soda aisle, your hand goes towards the red can as if it were a reflex, as if it were instinct, as if it were you. But it's not you. It's accumulation. It's repetition. It's decades of visual and emotional bombardment transformed into an unconscious gesture that you interpret as free will. Now think about something closer to your wallet. Think about how you chose your bank, or your credit card, or your health insurance plan. Did you do a lot of research? Did you compare every detail? Or did you choose the one you liked best? Recognized? The one you'd already seen at the airport, on the highway billboard, during CNN commercial breaks, in the game sponsorship? The one with the 22-second jingle that gets stuck in your head without you wanting it to? The American financial sector spends over $24 billion a year on advertising. $24 billion to make you feel that you're choosing the best option, whereas most of the time you're choosing the most familiar option, which isn't the same thing. Far from it. The most familiar option might have the highest interest rate, the most treacherous fine print, and the worst customer service in the entire industry. But you'll choose it anyway, because it appears first. Because the logo has been etched into your brain somewhere since you were 12, and saw it during the Saturday Night Live intermission. And here's where things get really interesting. Because the problem isn't just that you choose the familiar. The problem is that you construct a narrative to justify that choice afterward. You buy a car that doesn't make much financial sense, and you tell everyone that you did a lot of research, that you analyzed the options, that this was clearly the best decision. You believe it while you're talking, because your brain can't stand the idea that it's been manipulated. So it creates a story in which you is in control, a story in which it's rational, a comforting story, and false. Psychologists call this post-decision rationalization. You decide based on instinct, habit, or exposure, and then you fabricate the logic afterward. Like a politician who votes one way and then appears on television explaining why that vote was the only possible one, given the available data and considering the circumstances, blah, blah, blah. The decision has already been made. The explanation is theater. And the American consumer system was built on that. It was designed for that. It's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It's engineering. It's applied psychology on an industrial scale. From the supermarket shelves, yes, there's a reason why milk is at the back and junk food is at the front, to your streaming algorithm that puts certain series on your home screen because it knows what you'll watch, to appear, not necessarily what you went there to look for. Netflix has an internal name for this. They call it passive discovery, which is the elegant way of saying, we show you, you bite, you think you chose that crime documentary. But the documentary was placed there, at the right angle, with the right thumbnail, after a day when you were in exactly that state of mind. It was calculated. You were served. You didn't ask for the menu. And now comes the part that will hurt the most, because we've moved on from Coca-Cola and hamburgers and arrived at your investment, your debts, your real financial decisions, the ones that determine whether you'll retire with dignity or work until you're 72 and still won't be able to pay the doctor's bill because you live in a country where health insurance costs more than rent. And that also seemed normal after hearing about it for a long time. Think about how many times you've heard that owning a home is the best investment. How many times in your family, on television, in bank advertisement, in political speeches, in neighborly conversation. How many times did you hear this before believing it was a universal truth? Because, look, maybe it's true in your specific case, maybe it's not, but you never sat down to really do the math. You only believed it because you heard it a lot, and you heard it from people who also heard it a lot, and those people heard it from other people. And at some point, there's an industry that really wanted you to believe this, because this industry sells houses, and mortgages, and insurance, and renovations, and furniture, and an entire lifestyle built around a 30-year debt that you'll call equity while paying compound interest for 3 decades. And think about stocks. Think about how most Americans invest. You invest in what you know. You buy stock of the company whose logo you see every day. You buy stock of the fast food chain where you have lunch, of the big tech company whose cell phone is in your hand right now. Not because you did a deep fundamental analysis, but because you recognize it, because familiarity seems safe, and your brain, the same one that confused repetition with preference at the beginning, is now confusing recognition with knowledge. And those are very different things. Familiar doesn't mean true. Repeated doesn't mean right. Recognizable doesn't mean good for you. And that's the central illusion of the system. It's not that they lie to you. Sometimes they do, of course, but that's not the main point. The main point is more subtle. The main point is that they expose you so much to certain ideas, certain brands, certain financial behaviors, that these things start to seem natural, inevitable, obvious. And when something seems obvious, you stop questioning. And when you stop questioning, you stop comparing. And when you stop comparing, you stop realizing that there were other options, better options, cheaper options, options that didn't sponsor Sunday's game, therefore never reached you. And then their choice becomes your choice, without a single moment in which you notice the transition. The only way out, and it's a narrow one, is to understand the mechanism while it's happening. It's about developing the habit of asking, to want either that, or I acknowledge this? Did I choose this? Or was I just exposed to it enough to stop questioning? These are uncomfortable questions. Your brain will resist, but it's precisely this discomfort that separates a real financial decision from a conditioned reaction, disguised as a choice. You think you chose this, but maybe you only recognized it. And recognizing it isn't the same as deciding. It never has been, And until you understand that difference, someone with $4 billion in advertising budget will continue making your decisions for you, with a smile on their face and with the cheese dripping in slow motion.